and this is the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 85. Broadband is tasty and nutritious. Recorded live Sunday, April 14th, 2024, live from iTechGear Central. As I said, I am Christopher Spera, the editor-in-chief over at iTechGear.org. And unfortunately, kids, we are Mr. Larry McJunkin-less again, unfortunately.
We're Larry-less.
We're Larry-less. Unfortunately, he is still under the weather. So, Larry, if you're out there somewhere,
and he has sent our wishes to everybody. He really wants to be here.
You know, the deep moonlight. You know. Anyway,
if he would stop beating himself up, man. Anyway,
my goodness.
But we still have the dulcet tones. We do. We still have the dulcet tones of the former contributing editor over at Gear Diary in Pocket now, and of course, editor over here at iTechGear.org, Mr. Chris Gavula. How are you, sir?
I'm great, but didn't I already tell you to get off my lawn?
Yes, you did.
Okay.
Yeah.
Alrighty then. also joining us this week, the former contributing writer over at Gear Diary, and of course, current editor over here at iTechGear.org, and the host of the Linux Link Tech Show and Living in the Retro Arcade podcast, Brother Joe McLaughlin. How are you, sir?
I recorded the show. Red alert. I did.
The new phone books are here.
Right?
You know, you already got an and in your introduction. Isn't that enough? Come on.
Well, so I recorded the show today on combat. And I don't mean video game combat. I mean the game combat.
Okay.
Yes.
The first game probably everybody played on their first home console. So which was it's such a simple game, but we spent hours playing that. I'm telling you, when I was a kid. So, but that's what I talked about this week. I might actually, I don't know if I'm gonna record at night, but I think I might record about DRM next week because it's starting to make even modern games like that came out in the 2000s not work anymore because they're taking servers down. Anywho, other than that, I'm just Chucky.
Well, alrighty then. That is good to hear.
Yes.
Good to hear. But you know, some things aren't as ducky.
The truth.
Yeah.
Some things aren't as ducky out there. And unfortunately, there are 92 countries to whom Apple has issued an alerts regarding mercenary attacks on their computers and iDevices and things. So
yeah, this is another part of Apple's they had this alerting system in place. It's a while now, a year or 2 years. And they have taken steps in the past to notify folks of potential attacks on their machine. And normally it's folks of some notoriety. Either you're some kind of government official, you're some kind of journalist, somebody who has a celebrity, maybe sometimes in some cases that you may have a certain reason why they might be more likely to want to attack your device.
Right.
And this is just another wave of that kind of alerts going out. But, I just want to heave a big sigh every time I hear that we've had to do this again, or they've had to do it again.
Well,
Yeah.
So little background in history. Multiple times a year, Apple sends out a number of different notices to identified threats, right? And they've issued notices to over 150 countries since 2021. They've also sent identical warnings to a number of journalists and politicians in India in October of last year.
Yep.
And there were a number of amnesty groups or Amnesty International reported that they had found Israeli spyware markers for NSO groups, invasive spyware, Pegasus on the phones of prominent journalists in India, et cetera, et cetera. So,
and let's add that's also why Apple added that mode that you can put your phone into, where basically you're connected but not much else, kind of thing. It's designed to protect yourself in the event that one of these things comes through. So Yeah, that's all part of the same package, if I remember correctly.
It is. And unfortunately, this particular time, Apple was unable to provide more information about what caused them to send out the notification in the first place. Um, that may help, mercenary spyware attackers adapt their behavior to evade detection in the future. So they're keeping a little mum about this. But at the same time, they do want to let some folks know. And apparently this is an active system.
But that just tells me there's either more investigation or other folks are involved, so they're not allowed to say much more at this point. There's a lot of potential causes there, but yeah, I mean, they obviously wanted to say something so that people could take some action on their own for their own devices.
Right. Interestingly enough, the TechCrunch link that we are citing in the show notes includes a link to a tool that'll tell you if NSO's Pegasus spyware is targeting your specific phone. So there's a link down near the bottom of the article that gives it, and it's got a nice little block with a funny little glitchy eyeball or CBS network sign that will go ahead and give you access to a toolkit that'll help you figure that out, whether or not you've got the bug or not. News outlets reported that several authoritarian governments, including Mexico, Morocco, United Arab Emirates, used spyware developed by the NSO group to hack into the phones of thousands of their most vocal critics, including journalists, activists, politicians, and business executives. So they've got a little bit of a write-up and access to a toolkit. And if you feel that you may be one of those folks, there you go. You've got access to something that will give you a little bit of help. So
nice.
What a way to start a show off, huh?
Well, that was a downer.
Yeah. But now here's okay, so that was the doggy downer. Now here's a puppy upper for you.
I need the puppy upper. Let's go for it.
Yes. M4 chips. All right. And apparently a new MacBook Pro are said to be due before the end of this year.
Okay, but that happens every year. So
yes,
okay.
I know, but
so what's new this time?
The M4 chip. It's supposed to be, way into the AIs.
Yeah, way into the AIs. Okay.
Way into the AI. So one of the things that you really, really need, I guess, in order to really take advantage of some AI capabilities is something that has been part of the Apple silicon chips, I believe, since the beginning, since the M1, and that was their neural processing unit, or NPU. And as we've seen over the past few generations of chips since the introduction in 2020, 2021, somewhere around in that area, the chips have gotten, the processes have gotten smaller and smaller. We're currently on a 3-nanometer process. So I think, and I don't think they're going to go to a 2-nanometer process for at least a little bit yet. So the chips, I think, are going to get just a little bit larger, maybe a tad thicker, as we go to the M4, the M4 Pro, and the M4 Max. But you will see larger NPUs as we move forward, so that there's more juice, there's more punches, more power behind the ability to process through all the algorithms and all of the contents of all of the large language models that are out there.
Well, there you go.
Yeah. So according to Apple Insider, the M4 generation is claimed to be nearing production. People with knowledge of the chip said have reported to Bloomberg. There will be allegedly 3 main varieties launched: the Donna Brava and the Hydra. These are likely the core M4 chips for Donna and the Brava said to be the M4 Pro and M4 Max, with Hydra rumored to be destined for the Mac Pro. So it's
it's
gonna be interesting. I guess earlier this year in February, reports were indicating that the M4 and A18 processors will have more AI computing cores. Again, the neural processing units, the NPUs, which would seemingly mean, like I said, the neural engine. So there you go. So it's coming even to the Apple side of things. Microsoft is getting all co-piloty out there with the AIs.
Sure.
And now I guess Apple is starting to bang on that drum. I have a feeling though that they've hopefully been at it a little bit longer, and they're not just going to go and stick a Siri key on the keyboard and call it done. Because didn't they do that earlier? Or didn't they, they voice enabled it? Didn't they? They voice enabled it, but just voice. But I mean, anyway, this of course is all coming from Mark Gurman. So, but yeah. So
well, and he has a pretty good track record, but
he does.
It's still pretty early. The devil's in the details, and we're a little far out yet for the details to be exact.
That is true. But Mark Gurman is the Ming Chi Kuo of the 2020s. So
there you go.
There you go.
So I guess we'll see where it goes. But yeah, I mean, none of that's a surprise. M4 is coming out later in the year, needing to beef up the AI. It's all pretty much expected as far as I can tell.
I would think, and I think for the next few years, I think for at least the next 3 years, you're going to see a lot of development in AI. I think you're going to see a lot of progress in AI. I think you're going to see it hit more of the consumer side than anything else. Because the enterprise side, they ain't budging for nobody.
Well, but I do want to say that though, we are seeing some job hits now that are not necessarily AI hits. But there might be automation hits or things that we already have had in place.
Right.
And yet they're going to be called AI hits because that's the big thing to say in the media
right now, yeah.
So I think for a while, I'm going to call them false positives, but that doesn't mean we won't see hits because of it. And long term, this is going to be like any other wave. Like when you had the wave of industrialization and automation, guess what? Some people lost jobs, but there were other jobs created. I suspect the same thing will happen this time. What those will look like, I don't know. That depends on how this thing develops. But here we go.
Right.
We're on another ride, kids. Here we go again.
True. So,
but there's more good news today, isn't there?
Well, could be. Well, especially if you're an Apple Watch user.
And
Apple,
I am.
I know. I am too. So I'm gonna be sick here. Anyway,
you almost sounded genuine there. But I know you are an Apple Watch user. But the way you present is just interesting.
I am. But apparently, Apple has a solution for the ghost touches issue that has been plaguing some Apple Watch owners over the
have you experienced that problem?
I have not.
I haven't either. I mean, I know it's real for people that have it, but
right.
Now, let's explain what that is for folks who haven't heard of this.
Right. So apparently there is an issue impacting the latest additions to the Apple Watch family, the Series 9 and the Watch Ultra 2. It also affects Apple Watch Series 7, Series 8, and Ultra 1. Apple has stated to their authorized service providers. All right. So they've been told not to replace watches for the ghost touch problem. All right. Instead, Apple is instructing customers to fix the issue through a forced restart. And which is basically, hold down the side button and the digital crown for 10 seconds. And that'll go ahead and bounce you around. So that'll restart the watch.
Their feeling is it's a software issue, not a hardware issue.
Correct. And apparently there is a fix that was added to watchOS 10.4. So presumably that version of the software addresses the issue. For all of the models that I had mentioned. If that doesn't fix it for you, Apple is saying in that memo that they shot out to service providers that a further fix will be coming in the near future. So if you're experiencing the ghost touches, or which is basically it appears as though the screen is glitchy or bouncing to a different display. All right, like somebody had actually touched something and you automatically go, let's say if you to a weather screen. All right, you may get a glitch and then it automatically goes to a weather screen, like you had touched a weather complication or something. And you didn't touch anything. All right, or didn't even have your finger or hand near the screen of your watch. So the right. The issue here though is that this has been going on for a little bit, and people are seeing the screens jump erratically and exhibiting some level of unexpected behavior.
Have we seen any reference to roughly what kind of level of how many people are seeing this kind of thing? Is it a small percentage? I'm assuming it's not a large percentage.
Well, unfortunately, it's very difficult to get those kinds of
of course it is.
Apple. They always keep those numbers close to the chest. They don't share things like that.
No, but sometimes people take polls and surveys and try to get a rough sense of what might be going on. I was curious if we'd seen anything. I haven't seen anything. That's why I asked.
No, I haven't seen anything on hard numbers as to, and neither of the links that we are showing in the show notes has anything about a Reddit sort of thing that's worth talking about.
Exactly. Yeah, I mean, you have to be careful with that too, because of course it's only the most vocal people you're going to hear from, but you can often do a poll and get a rough idea of what's going on.
True.
So
while there is a fix that was released in 10.4, Apple's expected also to release a more permanent fix in watchOS 10.5.
So for those of you who are having this problem, force reset your device and eventually there'll be a better fix, I guess.
Right. Force restart. All right. Is a workaround. If you haven't updated to watchOS 10.4, then go do that now. Watch for the release of watchOS 10.5, which should be coming out later this year. There should be betas out for that now. I believe
there are. I believe there are, if I remember correctly.
Things like this may not necessarily be resolved with a single patch. So it might take a few releases. There may be a 10.4.1, 10.4.2, etc. With
they're usually pretty complex. Yeah.
So I'm not exactly sure what or why this is happening in terms of what's happening with Apple and the newer series 9 in Watch Ultra 2. I think you're seeing it more there than you are on the 7, 8, and Ultra 1.
I know that was where it was first reported anyway.
Right.
What was on those devices.
Right.
So yeah, you're probably right.
So I don't know, but
Joel's being quiet. It's all his fault.
Yeah, I was gonna say
I have no input on Apple Watch because I don't have one because it won't work with anything I have.
No input,
exactly.
Stephanie.
The last thing I want is a watch that can page me for work things. No.
Yeah. That's his one criteria. You can't page him for work.
Yeah.
All right. So I'm going to go ahead. I'm going to move us on to our mobile Linux segment. And this is really, I'm excited about this next story. I truly am. When I looked at this and I saw this on my ISP's site, it was very clear that I was seeing exactly what I needed to see. It showed me the information that I wanted to know. It showed me the information that I needed to have. ISPs are now required by law to provide information on how much things cost, how fast their speeds are, at which tier levels, et cetera, et cetera. They've all got to be out there. So all the tiers, all the levels, all the speeds for those levels, and the prices for those, and everything that you get in terms of services, etc., all have to now be fully publicized in a format that we are calling or is being called the nutrition label, because it's something that everybody is used to seeing, right?
Yep.
And ignoring.
Well, and
that,
ignoring,
because that
some of us don't.
right.
We have to pay attention, but yeah.
Right. But some of the stuff that's out there is really kind of cool. The fact that you are able to see all of the information on what kind of service plan or what kind of, or how long, or you have to have that service plan in order to get those prices, et cetera, et cetera.
Yeah. I think it's service. Well, I have to tell you, it's interesting, and it's a kind of a complex page if you've never seen one of these kinds of things before, or if you don't look at the nutrition labels on your food. It can appear complex when you first look at it. But the one thing it lets you have, if nothing else,
right,
is it gives you a consistent way to look at different carriers and see how they measure up against each other. Now, for a lot of us, we're in markets where it is almost a sole carrier situation. It's not going to help us,
right?
Because it is what it is.
Some of us, yeah.
But
for those I'm looking at. Well,
sorry.
I'm also looking at this way too. I'm seeing things like latency, speed upstream, speed downstream, and I'm thinking, my dad isn't going to know what the fuck any of that means. Sorry for dropping an F-bomb, but I mean, so to me, it seems like a good idea, but I think the people that really needs to see these and really needs to understand these still aren't going to understand them. They're not going to know why. Oh, I paid for a gig, but they're not going to know why they don't always get a gig.
Mm-hmm.
But the one thing it'll enable them to do, though, is to be able to call their provider and say, hey, I thought I was supposed to be getting a gig, but I'm not. And at minimum, the provider would have to at least explain that to them.
Yeah, that's about the only thing. Yeah.
So it'll let them trigger those kinds of things a little better, I think. So,
and I'm very much I don't need the daddy government to take care of me, but I guess some people do. But
there's always going to be some level of
I just think there's a better way to do it. That's all I'm saying.
But we haven't seen it yet, and the market hasn't provided it yet. So here we are.
Truth. Yeah.
They whether they should or not, and I would prefer they did. They haven't, so here we are. Maybe they will, and then this will change.
Yeah, some of them too goes towards where are you a person that reads contracts? There's a lot of people that only read contracts that they're signing when they sign, like when they go and get a car. Yeah, like fine, I'm approved for the loan. I'm signing it on. Then it's not telling them that if they wreck that car, oh, you don't have gap insurance, so now you still have to pay that.
Yep, things like that. Yep,
right.
So it's like this. I don't see this as solving the problem.
No, what it does is
maybe
it gives
I'm
you
wrong.
the ability, like Chris was saying, it gives you the ability to compare carriers. If you have more than one, like for me, in my market, I have access to Comcast, right? But I've also got a local fiber provider called MetroNet, all right? And I can stick them side by side. I can take those nutrition labels and put them side by side, and I can see exactly what I could get if I were to buy Comcast, and I can see exactly what I'm going to get if I were to buy MetroNet for each of their tier levels, and compare costs and compare levels of service. This is actually kind of cool.
And to be fair, in most markets, even sole provider markets, and people may not remember, the reason we had sole provider markets, especially where cable services was concerned, was because that's how they got the cable companies to wire those markets in the first place. That was the agreements that they made. And those agreements were often put in place, sometimes unlimited, sometimes they were put in place for 20 years, sometimes more or less. But that's why that happened. But the point is, even in those markets, when you talk about internet service, which came along a little after cable service, but riding the same wire, often, even if you if you've only have one cable provider, you probably also have something like a DSL service from your local phone company, or an AT&T, or somebody like that, or a MetroNet provider like Chris has. There's different things in different markets, so there's usually something you would want to look at. Or nowadays, in a lot of markets, for those of you who have Verizon, you know that Verizon offers home service. T-Mobile offers home service via over the air for a lot of services. So there's things you'll want to. The trick is there are different mechanisms, different ways to get there. This is a place for people to start. I don't think this is everything it should be. I don't think it's as clear as it should be for some folks who don't know what they don't know. But it's a place to start, and we didn't have that before. So it's a step in the right direction. Is it the right way to do this? I don't know. Is it the right coming from the right sport? I don't know. But it's something, and it's a positive move. So I'll take it for that.
Right. Joel was saying earlier, that some of the speeds and provided with your plans, most folks don't necessarily get those plans or get those speeds. Rather,
there's other factors. Like I think Joel, you mentioned earlier in the week, we talked about this a little bit, and you were mentioning, well, what if you're on your own wireless network at home? You're not going to get the larger broadband speeds because your wireless doesn't go that fast.
Or
your provider should be able to tell you that.
Or you're on wireless, period, and as opposed to wired.
Well, and that's a big thing with cell when you talk about cell providers and broadband speeds on cell. If you're on some of the 5G services, some of those services are very dependent on how close you are to the tower, and it varies a lot. DSL varies depending on how far away you are from the central office. So there's a lot of variables that you have to consider in there. But the point is, this is a place to start talking. You can say, hey, I'm not getting this. I'm going to call my provider and find out why. And then they can tell you, well, you're this far from the carrier, from the central office. You're this far from the tower. You're not going to see that. This is what you're going to see.
Right.
And you can have that conversation, but you don't even have a place. A lot of people didn't even have a place to start that conversation before. So this is a place to start.
It is. And like I said, what I'm seeing here in terms of broadband nutrition facts, all right?
Yeah.
It kind of makes them real tasty because, like I said,
it is real tasty.
It is. With every tier of service, you see exactly how much you're paying, how fast you're going to be able to go. And I can tell you, I put before, and we'll talk about this later. I had the Geek Squad come into my house and pull cable. So I've got wired internet service down into my office. I've also got it up into both of my boys' bedrooms.
Well, you don't have wired internet. You have probably local Ethernet in your house.
Well, I have Ethernet now in the house simply because it connects to I have wired service. But
even that varies depending on whether you're carrying Cat 5 or Cat 6 or what you're carrying as a type of cable.
But I can tell you, I can tell you, well, I don't have fiber in the house, but I can tell you that they're advertising, 940-ish megabits up and down, right? And I have gigabit speed up and down, and this is exactly about what I'm getting.
Absolutely. So but the point is that last few feet can change how your behavior is, and that's something you need to be aware of. But it's a place, again, this is a place to start. Basically what this is saying is from your box, basically the box that you have that connects to the carrier,
right?
From that point on, you should be getting these speeds.
Right.
On the inside of that, it's going to vary depending on what you're doing or how you're connected.
That is true. And what else is going on in the house, because
what else is going on in the house,
sharing it with the entire house. All right. So it's on it's all one network, and they're
absolutely true.
One of my kids must be upstairs gaming because instead of the 900s that I'm used to seeing, I got 787 down and 771 up.
Absolutely.
All right. But that's still uber quick. Right.
So that's good. So this is a good place. I think it's a good thing. I think it's a good place to start, and I'm glad to see it. It's not perfect. I'd like to see more, better, different, faster, whatever. But the point is, this is a place to start.
Right.
So I'm happy with it.
But as we say around the water cooler, mo better is mo better.
There you go.
So there you are.
But sometimes it's not, is it? With certain things, it's not.
Unfortunately, Google,
some happy things come to an end, don't they?
They do, and Google has been doing this a lot recently. I thought that a few weeks ago we had another story about another service that hit the Google graveyard. And
Oh
there may
gosh,
be
yeah.
some subscribers of the Google One service. And I'm not saying that Google One is going away, far from it. They are just taking one of the benefits that you got with Google One away because, like Google Plus and Google Wave and everything else that they've killed, no one seems to be using Google One VPN.
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's going away. For those
Yeah.
of you that
I've used it a few times.
Yep.
Mostly for the well, just for certain, like I was region locked out of something.
Right.
So that's about the only time I actually ever used it.
Right.
There are other ways to do it. They didn't increase the price of Google One when they did this.
Which is
there's that.
nice.
I'm gonna
right.
I'm gonna also assume that contractually it wasn't promised,
Right.
so that they can remove it. I'm assuming that, that it wasn't promised in the
originally,
services.
Originally, the Google One service launched back in 2020. All right.
Right.
And Google One VPN was launched at the same time. All right.
Right.
It became available on Windows and Mac OS 2 years later. Originally, it was only available with Google One Premium that included 2 terabytes of storage, or higher at least starting at $9.99 or $10 a month. Last year,
Right.
Google made it available for all Google One subscribers, hoping that it would kick in. Unfortunately, it didn't really generate a lot of interest or a lot of use. And I think it's largely because, generally speaking, most folks don't know, they don't know VPN from ESPN. Okay.
Or they only know that they had to be logged into their VPN to do work, and they figure out, well, why do I need a VPN on my phone? So
correct. Most people don't run a VPN now. And those of us who work for a living, those of us who are
well, those who work remotely,
hybrid or fully remote, all right, we'll know that when you are remote, when you're not in the office, you're going to have to run some sort of VPN in order to get access to, well, VPN stands for virtual private network, and you're going to have to run something that gets you that allows you to tunnel from through the internet from your office to the computer servers at your office, right? So from home to the office to allow you to get access to mail and Teams or whatever you're using for video conferencing, or whatever it is that you're using for email, or any of the other tools, custom software tools that they have, or whatever system that you've got somewhere. Unfortunately, most folks don't like the speed hit that they take when running that software, right? I mean, it really slows things down. I've seen it hit my my VPN or my fiber speeds, when I'm getting 980, 990, 940, whatever it is, it'll take it down through the wire. Through the wire, it'll take it down to anywhere between 350 to 550. That's one heck of a hit.
Well, right. Again, it's not the whole pipe. It's whatever you're connecting to isn't allowing you to go any faster.
Correct.
That's you're going to get throttled down to the slowest point in the path.
Correct.
Right. That's what's going to happen every time, and that's the nature of these things.
It is.
And what we're finding as well with some VPN services, not necessarily Google's, but with some of these VPN services, they one of the reasons people were getting on them was for quote unquote privacy. More privacy, and then they found out that the VPN providers in turn selling their data, so they didn't really have it anyway. So so
that you were
So some of the reasoning people had for it. So I think the demand over there is not what anybody ever expected it to be, and so I guess I understand. It's disappointing, to see a provider go, but I kind of understand it's not going to make them the money that they thought it would.
Most people don't know that, don't necessarily think that they want or need a VPN,
right? Or maybe they don't.
their,
Maybe they only want it under
maybe they
certain
don't.
circumstances.
Right.
It's hard to say. You got browsers with privacy mode that sometimes works, sometimes doesn't work. Maybe that's all you need. Maybe it's not. I don't know. It depends on what you're doing, I suppose.
Sure.
And we all need it for work a lot of times, like you said. But
right.
In our private lives, I don't think people care as much in that sense. I
don't think that they do.
It's a harder sell. So I understand.
It is a harder.
I understand it.
Yep.
It is a harder sell. And while the Google VPN service is being deprecated and discontinued, Google is still going to offer free VPN to owners of a Pixel 7 and newer. All right.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
And the VPN that's built into Google Fi is also here to stay. All right.
Well, there you go.
So it's not all VPN services with Google,
just
the one with Google One.
Okay.
So
that's okay. It is what it is.
It is what it is.
Yep.
So, yeah. So unfortunately, they're killing it, and that will allow, according at least to 9 to 5 Google, it's going to allow Google to refocus and support more in-demand features within Google One. So,
yeah.
Don't they say that every time they kill a service? It'll let us focus on everything else.
Well, I'm going to say,
yeah,
right. I'm going to say, I've used it maybe 5 times since I've had it. So
yeah.
I'm a good case study for that. It's like,
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. If it was something that I could throw on my laptop and use, maybe it would have been more useful, which there might have been a way to do that. But I mean,
honest,
really.
But let's be honest here. They say, well, it's going to let us focus on other things. You're not going to focus on other things. But you're just going to lay off the people that were doing it. That's what you're going to do. That's what you've been doing.
I would hope that it would give you the opportunity to focus on other things, because at this point, what else do you got?
They got quite a few things. They're a very busy company. So
they are a busy company, yeah. So I mean, that's the thing, and this is something too, I don't see the big service might be gone, but I guarantee you they're probably still going to have one for their work at home employees.
Absolutely, they are. Absolutely,
so, I mean,
and that means
the same people could work on it.
Well, and I wouldn't be surprised if it was possibly actually the same service.
Well, it could also be. It could also be that too. The thing is, if tomorrow all of a sudden people really do start wanting it again, they just have to turn it up, right? So it's not like it's completely dead in the water. So that's good.
Correct. So
okay,
all right. And before we get out of our mobile and Linux segment and take a quick break, I want to just go one more little quickie here. You may recall that a few months ago, we had talked about Beeper and Beeper Mini and the fight that they were having with Apple. Recently, and I found this out, and I thought this was very interesting, and I wanted to include it this week because this apparently gets those folks out of completely out of the Apple business. Beeper has been acquired by Automatic for $125 million. And if you were ever interested in the Beeper desktop software, and when you tried to go and download it, you got this whole, hey, you're on our waiting list. It's so popular that we had to create a waiting list. And now, baloney. It's now universally available.
Right.
There you go.
Right. If you were interested in what was what was the David that took on Goliath, and unfortunately Goliath won this time, you can now go and take a look at it, and they apparently support every SMS, RCS, and MMS platform out there except iMessage.
So folks who don't know, Automatic, who's acquired them, their big claim to fame is they own WordPress, and don't they own Tumblr as well, and a few other big players, Gravatar, some others, and so that's their big claim to fame. That's who's now owns Beeper. So
I have no idea what they plan to do with. I don't see what I would consider to be a immediately discernible business plan.
No.
From this, so I have no idea.
Yeah.
So this one is kind of got me.
Well, again, as we know, it was the big Goliath fight that the David and Goliath fight that Beeper had but they already had these kind of services out where they were supporting
Right.
a lot of different messaging services under one app. That was kind of their larger model anyway. To me, they're just continuing what they can do and kind of ignoring what they can't do now. And that's fine. I don't know that there's a big market for that. I'm not even sure what kind of business plan there is. Maybe outside the U.S. there's more market for it. In the U.S. we're still predominantly on one or two things. We're not doing a lot of cross message stuff yet. We might eventually, but we're not doing that yet. So it'll be interesting to see where it goes, with them. But I'm glad to see they're still around, because if nothing else, what they did was very clever. And clearly they have some talent in the company, and it'd be nice to see them be able to retain that talent and see what they can do with it. So it's good to see them still surviving.
Yes, but apparently, according to the Wired article that we are citing here, Automatic is really trying to beef up is trying to really expand its broader strategy to offer more messaging features. They acquired another messaging app called Texts for $50 million late last year. All right. They are an original investor in Beeper, and I guess they went ahead and like I said, bought the cow, right? They bought the cow. They invested in Beeper in 2022, and they've bought Texts, and so now they're trying to build this strategy of providing some level of messaging features to the peoples.
Yeah, well, it'll be interesting to see what they're able to do. Right. I don't know that the peoples care enough to do this, but
well, if they want to be another WhatsApp or Telegram or something like that, I can understand and see where it would be nice to have yet another competitor in something like that.
Well, those are
care.
But those are single providers as opposed to an aggregate provider, which is what Beeper's trying to be.
That is true.
And to me, that very falls into the same category as we see some of our content providers, like an Apple, like the Apple TV app, trying to aggregate Hulu and Netflix and some of the others into their app. So you just go to the one app and get to everything else. To me, this is the same thing. And people aren't really anxious to go there. They sometimes go there, but they're not. It's not the thing. So we'll see. Some people will and some people won't. That's just how it's going to be.
Some people won't. I agree.
I don't know what that's going to look like. Time will tell. So it's going to be interesting anyway.
Right. I know that they did garner a lot of support, at least from the press.
They did
in late last year.
Well, and it shook up government investigations and things like that. So we know the
Judiciary Committee and the Department of Justice.
Yeah, I think for the wrong reasons,
involved
but they
got
did.
Interested in looking at Apple for anti-competitive behavior. But as you and I had discussed, a great deal.
We did.
During this, it's Apple's service.
It's a private service. It's not
a private service that you pay for when you buy the device.
Yeah. I mean, unless you're going to go after WhatsApp and Telegram and all the others,
right?
To open up their APIs.
Why should Apple?
Why should Apple? I just don't see that happening. So again, we'll see.
I don't know. It's an interesting article over at Wired. In order to ensure that you don't have to subscribe, make sure you make sure you don't have the ads blocked. Otherwise they start.
I remember I remember a time when like on Linux, we had this thing called Pigeon,
Right.
which worked with Twitter. It worked with Facebook. It worked with all those things. I don't even know. I know it still exists, but I don't know if it works with all those things because they've been increasingly shutting down their APIs.
Right.
Yeah.
So
and back in the day,
most of them are like that.
Right. Back in the 90s, I know that there were one or two apps out there that allowed that aggregated all of the instant messaging apps like ICQ and
Yeah.
AIM and
Yep.
But I never really saw those things take off, back in the day.
back in the day between like 96, 97 and the early 2000s, it was a really huge thing to have. You had all these different instant messaging apps, and you had some folks that were on on
Oh yeah, absolutely. They were in the
ICQ.
different,
You had some
right.
people that were on AIM, you had some people that were on MSN, you had some people that were on CompuServe, and there were like I said, there were one or two apps, and I forget their names. So if you remember what they were,
Pigeon was one. Yes.
Pigeon was one, but there were a couple of others that aggregated all of these together. So you had just one app to rule them all. If you wanted to run more than one, all you had to have was an account.
But look where they are today. Nowhere.
They're gone because all of those networks are gone.
Well, but the point is, over time they could have added other networks and taken networks away. That's what the aggregator is supposed to do. Clearly, they didn't survive doing that. So to me, it says that there's not a lot of long-term interest in those kinds of things, is what it says to me. So I'm not sure that this is going to succeed either. So, but we'll see.
We'll see. I don't know. I mean, there's going to be, as long as there's smartphones, there's going to be texting services that are around.
Absolutely, there will be. Whether people want to aggregate them is another matter.
Correct.
Don't know.
So, I don't know either. All right. Well, I'm going to go ahead and move us to our Windows segment, but we will do that right after this brief message. Hi, this is Christopher Spera with iTechGear.org, and I'm here to tell you that iTechGear.org and the iTechGear Weekly are on Patreon. Patreon is a platform for creators, allowing them to express their creative side in an organized, marketable fashion and earn a living or create a really cool kind of side hustle. You can create a community around your hobby of choice. You can gain followers. You can get members and supporters all along the way. You can create subscription products that, for a pledged amount every month, you'll provide to your members and followers. Setup is easy, prices are reasonable, and you can have your pledges auto-deposited into an account of your choice every month. With iTechGear.org, our initial offering is a monthly newsletter for just $3 a month. This is our initial offering, and we'll have other tiers and other products and other offers up in the coming months. Become a patron of our site. Grow with us, and we'll provide you with the tech understanding that you're missing right now. Join us on Patreon at www.patreon.com/iTechGear. That's www.patreon.com/iTechGear. And welcome back to the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 85. Broadband is tasty and nutritious. And I want to go and we'll move us into our Windows segment. And as you see, we're going to start off by talking about bad performance.
Yes, we are.
So there's been a lot on this. I've seen coverage on this particular topic on just about every Windows site that I have visited over the past.
And this is coming up even in very, very, I would call them pro Windows sites.
Yes,
which is what I find fascinating.
Yes, apparently, there were some. There's a one or two ex team leads out there from Microsoft that are just going ahead and absolutely trashing the performance of all things the start menu. And I didn't there, and I saw a video or two out there of a what's it, either an i7 or an i9 with like 32 gigabytes of RAM, with so a decent development machine, where they click the start menu and they wait.
Yeah.
And then the stuff comes up and then they can type. All right. And because they want to search for a an app or something, right? As opposed to, trying to sort through folders or sort through the all apps list. They just want to start typing, and then, very quickly you get to because you know what you want to run. So you type whatever, with control panel as an example. You type CON, and then it comes up with control. You click the link and you highlight it, and then you go ahead and you click the run as administrator or run or whatever it is, and away you go. And there's a noticeable amount of lag. And you got to wonder, what is going on? Are they hiring kids straight out of college, out of school?
I wonder, because let me step back a little bit on that.
Sure, go ahead.
So a few months ago, I mentioned that there was a similar complaint about what was going on with the new release of the Windows File Manager. It was very performance awful. It looked great, but it was performance awful.
Yes.
They also have released the quote unquote backup service, which really doesn't back up to anything other than OneDrive.
True.
And so really it's a way to push you toward a service rather than an actual backup solution. There's a lot of things going on right now with all of this stuff. So there's these performance things that are hitting us. If you or I hit if we have to go to Windows Update, the performance on it is hideous. If you go to the Windows Store to get app updates or something like that, compare that to how fast those app updates come on your iOS device or your Android device.
Not all that great.
It is terrible. All the performance in a lot of these, what I would call the sort of the utility layers of Windows, is awful. It's been awful. It's worse under Windows 11 than it ever was. It wasn't great under Windows 10 either, but but for those of us who have been around long enough to remember the Windows 95s, 98s, the even the XPs when they came out, it seems like progressively these services, these core kind of services, have gotten sloppier and sloppier and less efficient.
Agreed.
And some of those are probably server-side issues. Some of those are probably OS level issues. And I don't know who's working on this stuff, or if Microsoft has just gotten rid of enough people that there just aren't the people working on. In other words, they put code out and then you just move on to the next thing rather than trying to optimize the code that they put out. I don't know what's going on, but I would say it's a very broad problem. We're looking at this menu thing because that's what these execs have, these folks have mentioned. But really, I think it's a wider issue with Microsoft right now, and I don't know what's going on there.
All right, so we're citing two links from Windows Central. I was a little off on the specs. It was a $1,600 Windows PC with a Core i9 and 128 gigabytes of RAM. All right.
Yeah.
So this thing
there's got to be something wrong with this system, though. I mean, I'm not saying that's not happening, because I don't see it myself on my start menu. So I guess I'm just lucky.
Right. Well, this guy's name is Andy Young. All right, or at least he's pulling in a tweet from somebody named Andy Young. All right, who's got a blue check mark by his name, so he's verified. And if you click the movie, all right, and you watch the movie, and he clicks the search bar, and we're waiting. And we're waiting. And
well, I can
now
tell
it
you,
comes up and everything is there.
I can tell you, if you try to do that stuff right after you start up Windows,
there's
a lag for several minutes.
Right.
We gotta wait for all the system services to come up.
Yeah, the system's got to come up, and it's got to cache everything, or at least read the cache into active.
Yeah, the problem is there's this sort of false sense that you're good to go way before you're really good to go, so to speak.
Agreed.
Yeah.
Agreed. I remember I was having a similar issue with a Windows XP machine, and I had a help desk agent at the company that I was with at the time tell me, look, do yourself a favor, turn your Windows machine on, log in, go get a cup of coffee, go get a donut, go talk to somebody.
I can
and
tell
then come
you,
back 5-10 minutes later.
I can tell you at my work PC, when I sign in first, this is even before I've connected to the VPN, right?
Right.
You sign in, it uses your work ID to authenticate you to the computer. Right. I have had it take several minutes to come back and say, okay, you're in now. Right. It is ridiculous. There's something going on that delays these things. And I don't know, again, if it's an OS level thing, if it's a server level thing.
It is a server level. In that case, it is a server level thing. It is a bunch of services that are either loading and or running or both.
And the problem is when you're the end user and you're not seeing anything happen that should be happening, all you are is frustrated.
In many cases, there are auditing services that are running just to go ahead and make certain that you haven't been able to break the super secret, administrator's password to install things that you shouldn't have access to, or
absolutely
you have on your machine. So
either what you need is some kind of progress bar or something sort of indicating what's happening, so that you as a user know that you shouldn't expect anything else during that period.
Right. There should be a way for you to go ahead and just lock the console, have that progress bar stay there so that you know that you can come back and do stuff. Now, I don't have to sit there and wait and wonder, what the heck is going on, or what's installing, or because there could be new software coming down, or a new version of Office or something, or Windows updates that have been released for your machine. You don't know, because they're not going to come on a Tuesday at the office. They're going to come after whatever time somebody said, okay.
I will tell you too. I can tell you in general with Windows updates is a good example, because when those are pushed out in the monthly patch cycle that Microsoft does, I can tell you that my machines will generally act up in the days afterwards until I tell it to go ahead and process those updates.
Right.
But the machine will act like crap in the meantime.
Right, because it's sitting on them, wanting to get off the giddy up and get them in.
Right, and so that's very, 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 very. But to just turn that into poor performance rather than something that says, "Hey, you need to get off your butt and do these."
Yep.
That's not good. That's not good customer service.
Nope.
It's just not.
Nope, it's not.
It's not very visible. It's not very transparent. None of those things.
And most IT, I've noticed. I've talked to IT directors. Why isn't there something that that shows progress, or why do you run these things? Well, we want them to be completely transparent to the user. We don't want to interrupt their work. We don't.
But that does interrupt it. That's what I'm saying. But it interrupts them.
We don't want to interrupt their work. We don't want to worry them with things that are going on.
But it does it in a way that we don't know what's going on.
We have to do anyway, and we don't necessarily want to alert the user that we are in fact running an inventory.
But let's keep in mind that a lot of times they're running Microsoft utilities to do this. Yes. This is not like it's some. Sometimes it's a third party thing, but more often than not, it's a Microsoft. It's Scrum. It's something like that that's going on, and it's like so. Microsoft has a say so in how this is executed. And I don't think they're doing a good job. I don't think they're doing a good job at all.
There are a lot of folks, or a lot of third-party companies that are out there that make similar applications and provide similar services, besides the ones that are available at Microsoft. And you would expect, or you would think, that they would have worked with Microsoft, to really make these things a little bit more robust as far as performance is concerned. They wouldn't bog the machine down, that they wouldn't eat up all of the bandwidth, et cetera, et cetera.
Absolutely true. And so, like I said, I remember the old days. We all used to have this network protocol called FTP that was used to transfer files. It still exists in the world, but we've kind of moved on to some other things more than not. But it existed, and one of the things that we used to do is when you would start sending a file from one place to another, or pulling a file from one place to another using this protocol, the protocol it was built to expand to take up the bandwidth that was available.
Right.
And it just did that without warning. And that would sometimes take down networks. To me, this feels very, very similar. Like there's inefficiencies in this thing that they're doing. And because you don't get the feedback, you don't know as the end user what's happening. And whether or not that's an IT-driven process in your company, whether or not that's an OS-driven process, it's often dependent on the OS-driven processes. Correct. I have a problem that overall Microsoft is trying to move to this services model more and more and more. And the result of it seems to be more inefficiency for us as an end user. And I find it very, very maddening that they're getting worse and worse. Whereas I don't see that performance getting worse and worse on the Apple products.
Right.
There's no reason the Microsoft products should be getting worse and worse. They should be getting better and better. And they're offering more features. They're offering more features, but they're not improving the base stuff that's there.
Performance of those services or those features. It's almost like they're taking the noodles out of the pot, throwing them up against the wall. Here's a new product, and some of them stick, some of them don't.
And that's because the noodles are undercooked, Guy. Yes. That's what it's about.
Yes,
the noodles are undercooked.
I get that.
So
I find
aren't
as robust or as performance minded as
we've gone. Like I said, we've gone all over the place with this story. I get it, but really, it affects a lot more than this particular. This particular incident is just one symptom of, I think, a larger sort of problem going on at Microsoft right now.
100%. I agree. It bothers me though that it bothers me that something as visible as the start menu has this.
Yeah.
All right. In the enterprise, it's bothersome that there are IT-based services that are either coming out of Active Directory or some other sort of Microsoft server-based plugin that don't necessarily mind how they do what they do, and they can really cause issues and problems over the course of a workday. All right. And then management gets pissed off at the people and not necessarily calling IT. What are you running? What are you doing? All right. Why are my people telling me that they can't get shit done?
That's where we are.
Right. And that's where we are.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, you know where a lot of folks over at Best Buy are.
Well, they're not worrying about Microsoft anymore.
No, they aren't. They're in the unemployment line. Apparently, Best Buy and Geek Squad have laid off a number of agents over the past few days, months, whatever. Apparently, and this I'm getting from The Verge. So it's somewhat problematic, but they've laid off a number of different employees, indicating that they just don't have work for those folks to do anymore. One particular Geek Squad agent tells a story that they received an email on a Tuesday about a work from home event following the following day regarding a quote unquote company change. And they gave them individual calls, where they were telling these folks that they were let go for the simple fact that the company couldn't afford to pay them anymore. Short notice, and people are sitting there. I mean, they've just had the rug pulled out from under them. They had no idea what was going on, no real notice or any sort of telegraphing as to what was going on. It's just, Tuesday they get up and you're fired. So there's even a Reddit that's out there where folks are saying that they belong to the Geek Squad sleeper cell. And they're taking pictures of their badges in solidarity and
I understand that these issues and these changes are also going to affect some of the retail stores as well, and how they're doing things in the retail stores, and how, what they're presenting, what they're not presenting, that kind of thing. I've seen a number of what I would consider retail stores that they have that I thought were doing very well or doing fairly well, that all of a sudden seem emptier than they were. So I have a larger concern about what Best Buy is doing right now.
I would agree. We've got a Best Buy over by the store since the pandemic. They used to be open until 9. Now they're open until 7.
Yeah, well, they're all like that, or a lot of them are.
Right. But that happened right after the pandemic, right? Number one. And we know of folks that they actually have on the floor is greatly reduced, and the traffic that they have in the stores nowadays.
But we also know
sad.
that things like PC sales are down since the pandemic has
Right.
kind of wound down. We know
Right.
we understand that the things that people were buying at the beginning of the pandemic, all that's slowed down, and that's part of the problem here. We all get that, and I'm sure that's what's spilling into all these other aspects of their business. It's just, but it's just unfortunate because it's really kind of just indicative of the tech business at large, the challenges that it faces right now. And, and this is just visible.
Right. Well, what I find concerning is that Best Buy's CEO, Corey Berry, is blaming some of this on the advances of AI and other elements.
Yeah. I don't think so. Not yet.
Not yet. Now, come on, guys.
Yeah.
I mean, really, please don't start talking to me about how AI is taking these jobs away and how you've got a service called Best Buy Health or something like that.
So
that can solve some problems for folks. It ain't there yet.
Well, let's be honest.
No.
So when we say AI, we have to be very, very. We all know, we've had this conversation over and over. A lot of what we're calling automation, what they're calling AI, is really just automation, and that's been going on.
More sophisticated automation,
and that's been going on for years.
Or not even that. Like I watched a video this week about somebody bought a rice cooker that said AI on it.
Mm-hmm.
Oh.
Right. So they dug into it, and it basically operates on the same principle as the cheaper rice cooker. That was actually Technology Connections is what that was.
Right.
By the way, Alex is a really great guy. Don't always agree with him, but that's okay. I don't have to.
No.
But in this particular case, AI is a marketing term right now at this point. And that's why everyone's thinking it's starting to take things over.
And they're using it, but they're using it as a blame thing too, when maybe that's not really what it's about. It's just a thing that you can hang things. It's a hook you can hang your hat on right now is all it is. So like you said, a marketing term, if you will. It's a way to sell something or to explain something. It's not necessarily the real answer.
Yeah, it's like my article I brought out a month ago, how to identify AI generated content, which there's a ton of on the web.
Oh, it's all over the place.
Yeah, I have a friend who was actually trying to do that for an amateur radio group, and it could not spell Oklahoma in text. And I'm like,
honest to God,
it couldn't even make it look like Oklahoma. It's
here's the thing that really, really bothers me. I was playing around with it. Like generative AI for images and whatnot, and you say design a logo for this for iTechGear, right? And you spell it out for iTechGear,
right?
And it spells iTechGear incorrectly in the logo.
Yep. So
there you go.
So when it does that, and you're telling me AI is taking jobs, I'm sorry, it just ain't.
Sorry, it's not ready for prime time. Okay.
No.
I've told people this. I've had this conversation with lots of folks, and I'll tell you what, real quickly there.
Yeah.
It is in some very specific ways quite advanced, or can be.
Right.
But those are very, very, very specific use cases. And this is not using the generative AI that we talk about, that we see Copilot and some of these other things using. It's not that. This is a very specifically targeted written thing with a very specific set of tasks.
Right.
So really all it is advanced decision making. It's not even necessarily AI per se.
Exactly.
Right.
So
it's a large language model that is really more of a decision tree.
It's not even necessarily a large language model. It's not even necessarily a large language model. It's just advanced decisions. Yes. And it may be very advanced. Okay. Well, at some point it's true. If your decision trees are advanced enough, it'll become indistinguishable from what we think of when we think of AI. I get that. But yeah, and some of them are very smart and they're very clever, but let's not lose sight of.
Don't go overboard. Don't go.
This is not the same as ChatGPT. Okay, this is not what we're talking about here. That's not taking over at this point.
No.
So,
and it's not even close to being Skynet.
No, these are just very specific examples in very specific markets that are going to do things, and what you're going to see is more and more of that as time goes on. That's that simple. Correct. So, But there'll be other jobs created. That's why I say as some jobs go away, other jobs will start to appear in support of this stuff. So,
one can only hope, because
it always has. I mean, you're right. It might not this time, but it always has. So let's try to take it for what it's worth.
Yeah, right. The problem that you bump into is, how much retraining you're going to stick in.
Well, retraining is always going to be an issue. And if you're in technology, retraining is always going to be an issue. If you're not retraining your whole freaking career, then why are you in technology?
This is what I'm saying.
Exactly. Yeah.
I mean, I've had to change jobs so many times over the years as those things that I was doing went away, it became less important, and other things became prevalent in the industry. So, welcome to technology, kids.
Thank you.
Yep. Well, and here I am starting my IT career, doing mainframe operations. Do I do that anymore?
Yes,
absolutely
unfortunately, there are a number of state and local governments.
I'm not saying others don't, but
and I started in this business. I started in this business as a mainframe programmer.
Yep.
That there is hardly anybody doing that directly that way anymore. It just doesn't exist.
Correct.
Yes. And you blew your window at the turn of the century. So
pretty much. So there we go, kids.
So, all right. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to move us into our tip of the week segment. But before we get there, I want to just remind everybody, hey, iTechGear was founded with the intent of making technology easier for everyone to use and understand. This team specifically has dedicated their most of their technology and writing careers to the purpose of making technology easier for those around them to understand. And every week, starting with episode 81, we are going to feature a new computing tip authored by one of our experienced editors. So if you've got questions or requests, or if you've got suggestions, you can send them over to tips@itechgear.org. This week,
what do we got this week?
I'll tell you, this week, it's all about securing your Wi-Fi network. If you've got internet service coming into your house, and a lot of people do, and of course all the folks that are probably listening to this do, but if your Wi-Fi router, if your Wi-Fi in your house does not have a password on it, you are really inviting some bad things to happen to you, not only in stealing the service and hitting your bandwidth allotment for the month, if you in fact have that, but you could also have somebody peeping in on some of your purchasing or shopping transactions, your bank transactions, et cetera, et cetera. So the first thing to do, start by setting a strong, unique password for your Wi-Fi router. Avoid using any default passwords. They're easy to guess, folks. If you're using password 123 or password 123 with an exclamation point, you are inviting somebody to come in and steal your service.
Let me add a slight twitch on that, and that's that if you have older devices on your network, like older printers that were early network printers, you may find yourself not able to use some of the more complex passwords because they require, I'll call them older protocols to talk.
Sure.
It
may be security, time at that point to think about a new device. New device.
You may want to rethink some of those older devices that are limited in how they work and update them, because really the security is going to become a more and more important thing going forward, rather than your old printer. I know you might like that. You might like your old printer, but
let's face it. Uber Eats, DoorDash, any of those apps that you've got on your phone with the Wi-Fi that you use at the house, that you've got, you're buying things over the internet with Amazon.
Absolutely.
Amazon, Temu, whatever else it is that you're using in order to purchase something, whether Walmart, Target, even you're putting in some level
whatever you're doing,
pickup order, whatever it is, you've got financials going out across those things. You
sure do.
Sensitive personal information going out across those.
Yep.
Set a strong password. You may also want to go ahead and enable either WPA2 or WPA3 encryption on your router to encrypt the data that is transmitted over your Wi-Fi network. This encryption ensures that even if someone intercepts the data, they can't read it, they can't decipher it, they won't be able to see it without the decryption key that is private on your end. You also want to regularly update your router's firmware. In other words, when an update comes in, your router should be smart. Nowadays, it should be smart enough to say, hey, there's an update out here, and it should tell you. You should either get an email or a notification on your phone or your computer that says there is an update available for your router. Do you wish to install it? Or, hey, there's one available and it's going to install at this time on this day. All right. You want to make sure.
Actually, a lot of new routers have that built in.
Yep.
So it automatically does this.
I've got
does it on a reboot.
Hero set, and it will automatically down those firmware updates as soon as they are released, and it will install them automatically. And I don't know about it until after I wake up the morning after it's installed.
If you're not an IT person like we all are, then
this is very important.
Please set that to automatic. Also, change the default password on the router.
Yeah, please. Do nothing else.
Case in point, not here, but at my old house, neighbor granted, this is in the beginning times of Wi-Fi. Neighbor got a router. They set up on overlapping my channel, and I could not get around it. All right.
Yep.
I remember. Not only their router was not secured, they didn't have a web key, didn't have WPA, didn't have any of that. It was an open network. I could hop on it.
Yep.
I knew a lot of the default IP addresses that Linksys and so on and so forth used.
Yep.
I knew the default password. Guess what Joel did? Joel changed their network channel.
Devices. Or change the channel on this other guy's router. Right?
Yeah, that's exactly what I did. Now, great. I'm not telling you when. This is probably 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
But folks, that can still happen. All right.
You must have a password. It needs to be a complex, secure password. You need to enable WPA2 or WPA3 encryption and disable WPS or Wi-Fi protected setup, which is basically you push that one button and it sets up everything for you. It's simple. It's also a huge security and attack vector. So don't use it. All right. Get rid of it. Disable it. And then make certain that if you want to have a guest network, and most routers nowadays will allow you to set up a guest network. You don't give anybody else access to your home network where all of your stuff lives and resides, but it creates a separate network so that when your friends come over, your sons or your daughter's friends come over, they're all on the guest network and not yours. So there you go.
Yeah.
Very important to do stuff like that.
Yes. Protect yourself. You're not being rude. You're not being mean. All right. I don't know how many times, I've seen videos or reels on TikToks or Facebook where you've got somebody knocking on the door saying, hey, you set a password, you changed the password on your network, could you undo it because I've been jumping on your Wi-Fi? Can't you share your Wi-Fi? No, Karen, go pay for your own Wi-Fi. All right. There you go. You want to protect yourself, kids. Protect yourself.
Yep, absolutely, guys.
You don't need to be paying for anybody else's gaming experiences. You don't need to be paying for anybody else's internet services. Let them pay for their own internet services.
Yep.
All right.
Absolutely.
You work hard for your money. All right. You work hard for it, honey. All right. So go put the password on the network and make certain that you keep the undesirables out.
And treat your network right.
There you go. Treat your network right.
Yes. So that's
you had to go there.
So that's this week's tip of the week. All right, protect your network, protect yourself. Our pick of the week segment is next. And again, I want to remind everybody that our show picks are typically hardware, software, and other items of interest that we have individually purchased and actually used, and that we like enough that we want to recommend them to you. These aren't paid advertisements or other items that we have any kind of affiliated marketing relationship with. If they were, the editorial policy at iTechGear says, hey, you have to go ahead and disclose that up front. These are just sincerely things that we really like, and we want to share and bring them to you at the end of each show. Why?
Because we like
we
you.
Like you.
We do.
And this week, Joel's got the pick. What do you got for us, Brother Joel?
All right. So, as we all know, I am kind of a maker. I've been into 3D printing for quite a few years now. But one of the things I've always kind of wanted, never really gotten around to buying, I finally picked up, depending on who you think, it could be a little girly when you think about it. But because a lot of women do seem to buy these things. I got a Cricut Maker 3, which is...
What is a Cricut Maker 3?
Well, essentially, it is a machine that cuts things. That's a vast simplification of it.
Okay.
So it's essentially, in many ways, it's a plotter, because you can actually put a pen in it and you can actually have it draw things.
Okay.
But by far the most common thing is you can cut things. The most common thing it's cut with a Cricut is vinyl of some sort, either a vinyl to make a sticker, like I made one for my car today, or a iron-on vinyl that you can put on a t-shirt, which I have made. Let's see, 1, 2, 3.
Are those all those t-shirts that we've been seeing on
yes, on the face bag? Yeah.
Those are awesome.
Yeah, I made 2 call sign ones, and I also made one with the scripture on it, which I want to do again once I get another t-shirt.
Sure.
The vinyl itself is between $7 to $14 a roll, depending on what size roll you get, or if you go with the Cricut branded stuff. Now, I haven't tried any non-Cricut branded stuff just yet, but I'm sure a lot of that might work. We'll see. I might pick up a roll of whatever brand Michaels or Hobby Lobby has. They both have their own t-shirts. Plain t-shirts that are in multiple colors generally are about $3 at either Michaels or Hobby Lobby. You can also do it on I also bought the Easy Press 3 to go along with it, which is essentially a big giant iron. Nice. more akin to like a professional press, but not quite professional, because it's a lot smaller and a lot lighter.
Nice.
So that's how you actually first smooth it down with the Easy Press 3, and then you lay the cut piece of vinyl on top of that on its carrier. Iron it on. Now you have a new t-shirt. So and you can put whatever you want on the t-shirt. In fact, my laptop here, I have the word strong, which is part of Joshua 1:9, which is one of my favorite Bible scriptures. I just designed it.
Is that the
pretty
be
simply.
Strong and courageous?
Correct.
There we go.
Yeah, to remind me that because I am in training mode for this hike, which unfortunately, because of the rain, I have not been able to do a lot of hiking lately, because I just don't like to hike in
the rain and get
sludge
in the rain. No, I get you, dude.
Or sludge. But yeah, so
I am
now
there with you.
the link I included in the show notes is an Amazon link, which is the digital content bundle, which is not the exact one I got. I just went right to a Michaels and bought it. I bought the machine separately. I didn't buy it in a bundle, so I just kind of bought some stuff, and I bought some the tools. That's actually important. One of the things you do when you make a cutting is you weed the cutting. So what does that mean? Well, say you cut out say you have like this thing for that I have on my laptop. It's about 3x3, okay, but the letters themselves doesn't take 100% of that 3x3. All right.
Okay.
All right. So there's a lot of waste material in around the letters the way I've designed it. So you need to pick all that stuff out. Plus, like for example, if you have a letter O, it's going to cut the hole for the O, but of course it's not going to take out the little piece of vinyl that's inside the O. So make sure you buy some tools, for some weeding tools. I bought kind of a basic pack, which has the little scraper thing that you can use to press the transfer tape on there, especially useful for like the sticker I made in my car, or also with your other things. So you will need those kinds of things. So the machine itself, unless you buy it in a bundle like on Amazon, uh, doesn't come with those things. So they're going to run you about $20-$30 maybe. And also I would also recommend um, rulers or guides or something to help you with placement of the vinyl on the iron-ons for the different things. You don't have to do just t-shirts. You can do hats. You can do pretty much anything. But I mean, it's one of those things where I think once you get it, you'll think of things to do with it, and all of a sudden you'll have labels on everything and images and new t-shirts and or
Nice.
like one thing I'm thinking about doing is we're going on vacation to Hershey in July. So I might make us some t-shirts to wear on one day if I can actually get my son to do it. I know my wife will, but
I get it. I get it.
the bundle that's on I linked in Amazon is about $4.29. You can get the machine for about $2.50, somewhere around there. Then the press is gonna come think it depends on what size you get. I got the biggest one because I'm doing t-shirts. But they also another thing that it's probably coming down the pike, although I gotta save up for it, is they make a mug press. You can get ink.
I feel iTechGear mugs coming.
Maybe the mug press is about $1.99 plus I think there's a little bit different material that you use to put on it. I don't think it's final, but you can also cut things like a lot of ladies will make cards for people with it, as you can cut different things out on it. Scrapbooking folks, they love these things,
of course,
scrapbook things because they can make all these things that you would normally go to Hobby Lobby to buy. You can make it at home, and it can be custom exactly how you want it and what color you want it, which is the great thing about the Cricut Maker 3. They have smaller machines too, but I went for the Maker 3. I believe they even have a larger machine if you want to do this kind of stuff commercially. But I don't know if I'd recommend Cricut for that. And if you buy one, do it for yourself. Don't buy it with intending on starting a business, because there's a lot of labor involved. Like I did, the t-shirt I made that the gray one I made on with has the Joshua 19 on it has that was a lot of labor. I don't want to make 10 of those for my workout group. So it's great for prototyping stuff like that. If you want to see what it looks like, or to make a t-shirt just for you or your family members. Great for making gifts. But it's not going to be the greatest thing for turning out like 100 t-shirts. That's where you want to pay somebody like customink.com, I think, is one of the ones that I've heard of. So but
sure,
I love it so far. It's in a nice I would say general neutral blue. So that's the color mine is. So but I do believe they may have it in other colors, but I don't really care. I just wanted the machine, so I kind of like it. So maybe
cool.
y'all will get t-shirts this Christmas, maybe. Who knows?
There you go.
So,
and that's pretty cool.
Yep.
Well, all right, Joel, thank you very much. There will be of course a link in the show notes for everyone to go after that. And that, kids, is the show. This has been the iTechGear Weekly, episode number 85. Broadband is tasty and nutritious, recorded live Sunday, April 14th, 2024, live from iTechGear Central for the ailing Dr. Mr. Larry McJunkin, Mr. Chris Gavula, and Brother Joe McLaughlin. This is Christopher Spera saying, we will see you next time.